Marcus Thompson never imagined that dropping off his 6-year-old daughter Emma at the prestigious Riverside Elementary School would become the most humiliating experience of his week. Standing at the school gates in his worn construction boots and paint-stained jeans, he watched as luxury cars pulled up one after another, depositing perfectly dressed children and their equally polished parents. The morning sun cast long shadows across the pristine schoolyard as Marcus bent down to adjust Emma's backpack straps. Her uniform was clean and pressed, though he'd spent his last $20 on it from the second-hand store. Emma looked up at him with bright eyes, completely unaware of the stares they were attracting. "Daddy, will you pick me up today, too?" Emma asked, her small hand gripping his calloused fingers. "Of course, Princess. I'll be right here at 3 o'clock, Marcus replied, kissing her forehead gently. As Emma skipped toward the school entrance, Marcus became acutely aware of the whispered conversations around him. A group of well-dressed mothers stood near the marble fountain, their designer handbags catching the morning light. Their eyes followed his every movement with barely concealed disdain. "I can't believe they let just anyone into this school now," one woman muttered to her friend, loud enough for Marcus to hear. "Look at him. What kind of father shows up looking like he just crawled out of a construction site?" Marcus's jaw tightened, but he forced himself to remain calm. He'd heard worse things in his 32 years of life. After his wife Sarah died in a car accident 2 years ago, he'd learned to develop thick skin. The life insurance money had been enough to secure Emma a spot at this excellent school, and that was all that mattered to him. Another mother, wearing a pearl necklace that probably cost more than Marcus made in 3 months, shook her head disapprovingly. "These scholarship children are changing the whole atmosphere of the school. Next thing you know, they'll be letting in anyone who can scrape together the tuition." Marcus clenched his fists but reminded himself why he was there. Emma deserved the best education he could provide, even if it meant enduring the judgment of people who had never known real struggle. He'd worked double shifts at the construction company, taken weekend jobs painting houses, and even delivered pizzas at night just to afford the tuition and school supplies. The school bell rang, echoing across the courtyard like a signal for the daily social theater to begin. Parents began to disperse, heading back to their comfortable lives in gated communities and air-conditioned offices. Marcus walked toward his old pickup truck, parked between a gleaming Mercedes and a spotless BMW. As he reached for the door handle, he heard footsteps behind him. Turning around, he saw Mrs. Whitfield, one of the mothers from the Fountain Group, approaching with a smug expression on her face. "Excuse me," she said, her voice dripping with false politeness. "I'm Gloria Whitfield, president of the Parent-Teacher Association. I don't believe we've met." Marcus straightened up, meeting her gaze directly. "Marcus Thompson, Emma's father." "Oh yes, Emma," Gloria said, as if the name left a bad taste in her mouth. "Such a sweet girl. It's just, well, we have certain standards here at Riverside Elementary. The school has a reputation to maintain, you understand." "I understand that my daughter has every right to be here," Marcus replied evenly. "Her tuition is paid in full just like everyone else's." Gloria's smile faltered slightly. Of course, it's just that some parents have expressed concerns about maintaining the school's image. Perhaps you could consider dressing more appropriately for school functions? Maybe invest in some proper attire." The suggestion hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus looked down at his work clothes, then back at Gloria's expectant face. These weren't just clothes to him. They represented honest work, long hours, and the sacrifices he made every day to give Emma a better life. "Mrs. Whitfield," Marcus said slowly, "I work construction from 7 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. I drop Emma off on my way to work and pick her up when I'm done. These clothes represent the hard work I do to pay for my daughter's education. If that bothers anyone, that's their problem, not mine." Gloria's cheeks flushed red. "Well, I never. The audacity of some people. Don't expect any special treatment from the other parents, Mr. Thompson. Actions have consequences." As she stormed away in her designer heels, Marcus couldn't help but wonder what kind of world he was exposing Emma to. But then he remembered his daughter's excited chatter about her new teacher, her enthusiasm for learning, and the opportunities this school could provide. He'd endure 1,000 Gloria Whitfields if it meant giving Emma the future she deserved. Starting his truck, Marcus drove toward the construction site where he'd spend the next 9 hours pouring concrete and hauling materials. He had no idea that in just a few hours his life would intersect with someone else's in a way that would change everything forever. Sometimes the universe has a way of testing people's character before revealing its bigger plans. The morning mockery was just the beginning of a story that would prove how wrong first impressions could be, and how heroism often comes dressed in work boots and paint-stained clothes. Meanwhile, across town in the gleaming 40-story headquarters of Whitfield Industries, Victoria Whitfield sat in her corner office, completely unaware that her mother had just humiliated a hard-working father at her daughter's school. At 38, Victoria had built a business empire that employed over 15,000 people and generated billions in revenue annually. Her assistant knocked gently on the mahogany door before entering with a stack of documents. "Mrs. Whitfield, the quarterly reports are ready for your review and the board meeting is scheduled for 2 o'clock. Victoria barely looked up from her computer screen, where she was analyzing market trends and planning the company's expansion into renewable energy. "Thank you, Jennifer. Please make sure the presentation materials are loaded and ready. This renewable energy project could revolutionize our entire industry." What Victoria didn't know was that her mother, Gloria, had married her father primarily for his money and social status. Victoria had earned her position as CEO through relentless hard work, graduating top of her class from Harvard Business School and proving herself in every department of the company. She'd started in the mailroom during summers as a teenager, despite her father's wealth, determined to understand the business from the ground up. The irony was striking. While her mother was busy judging a construction worker for his honest labor, Victoria had built her success on the same principles of hard work and determination that Marcus embodied every day. At the construction site downtown, Marcus was operating a crane, carefully positioning steel beams for a new office building. His colleague Jake, a veteran construction worker with 20 years of experience, climbed down from the scaffolding during their lunch break. "Marcus, you're getting pretty good with that crane," Jake said, unwrapping his sandwich. "Ever think about getting certified for the bigger equipment? The pay bump would be substantial." Marcus wiped the sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. "I've been considering it. Emma's school expenses are going up next year and I want to start a college fund for her. Every extra dollar helps. Your kid's lucky to have you, man. Not many single dads would work this hard just to get their kid into a fancy school. She deserves every opportunity I can give her," Marcus replied, taking a swig of water from his thermos. "Her mother always dreamed of Emma getting the best education possible. I'm just trying to honor that dream." What neither of them realized was that the office building they were constructing would soon house a satellite office for Whitfield Industries. Victoria had personally overseen the architectural plans, insisting on state-of-the-art safety features and environmentally sustainable materials. Back at Riverside Elementary, Emma was having the time of her life in her new classroom. Her teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, had noticed how bright and eager to learn she was. During art class, Emma drew a picture of her father in his construction helmet, with the words, "My hero daddy," written in crayon across the bottom. "Tell me about your drawing, Emma," Mrs. Rodriguez encouraged. "That's my daddy. He builds big buildings and works really hard so I can go to this school. He says education is the most important thing in the whole world," Emma explained proudly. Mrs. Rodriguez smiled warmly. She'd heard the whispered comments from some parents about the scholarship children, but she could see the love and dedication in Emma's family situation. The little girl was well-mannered, curious, and clearly cherished by her father. Meanwhile, Gloria Whitfield was having lunch at the country club with her circle of friends, still fuming about her encounter with Marcus that morning. "You should have seen him, Patricia. Absolutely no sense of propriety whatsoever. Work boots at a school pickup, can you imagine?" Gloria complained, picking at her Caesar salad. "Well, what did you expect from those people?" Patricia replied, with a dismissive wave. "I've been telling the school board for months that we need stricter admission standards. These scholarship families are diluting the quality of our children's environment." What Gloria didn't mention to her friends was that Victoria had been asking her to get more involved in charitable work, particularly programs that helped underprivileged children access better education. Victoria believed that talent and potential existed in every economic bracket, and that opportunity should be based on merit, not bank account balances. As the afternoon wore on, Marcus continued his work at the construction site, unaware that his path was about to cross with Victoria's in the most unexpected way. The building they were working on was ahead of schedule, thanks partly to Marcus's dedication and skill with the heavy equipment. Victoria, meanwhile, was preparing to leave her office early for once. She had planned to surprise her 8-year-old daughter Sophia by picking her up from school personally instead of sending the family driver. She wanted to spend more quality time with Sophia, feeling guilty about the long hours her business demanded. As Victoria gathered her things, she felt a strange flutter in her chest. She'd been experiencing occasional heart palpitations lately, but attributed them to stress and too much coffee. Her doctor had recommended she reduce her workload and get more exercise, advice she'd been steadily ignoring. The universe was setting the stage for an encounter that would challenge every assumption. Gloria Whitfield had made that morning about character, worth, and the true meaning of heroism. Sometimes the people we dismiss most quickly are exactly the ones destiny has chosen to change our lives forever. Neither Marcus nor Victoria could have imagined that their worlds were about to collide in a moment that would reveal the profound difference between appearing successful and actually living with integrity. The afternoon sun was beginning to cast longer shadows across the city, and with it came the promise of an event that would transform both their lives in ways they never could have predicted. The clock in Victoria's office showed 2:30 p.m. when she decided to leave for the school. She'd canceled her remaining meetings, something she rarely did, but the persistent tightness in her chest made her want to get some fresh air. Walking toward the executive parking garage, she felt proud of her decision to surprise Sophia with a personal pickup. Victoria's black Tesla Model S glided silently through the city streets as she made her way toward Riverside Elementary. The school was only 15 minutes away from downtown, but the route took her directly past the construction site where Marcus was working. As she approached the intersection near the construction zone, she noticed the organized chaos of workers and machinery that always fascinated her about building projects. Marcus was just finishing up his shift on the crane, carefully lowering the last steel beam into position. His supervisor had praised his precision and efficiency, and Marcus felt good about the day's work. Soon he'd need to clean up and head to the school to pick up Emma. The thought of seeing his daughter's bright smile always gave him energy, even after the most exhausting days. At exactly 2:45 p.m., as Victoria's Tesla approached the traffic light near the construction site, she felt a sharp, crushing pain in her chest. The sensation was unlike anything she'd ever experienced, as if someone had placed a vice around her heart and was tightening it with each passing second. Her vision began to blur, and sweat broke out across her forehead despite the air conditioning. Victoria managed to pull over to the side of the road, her hand shaking as she pressed the hazard lights button. The pain intensified, radiating down her left arm and up into her jaw. "This can't be happening," she whispered to herself, fumbling for her phone. But as she tried to dial 911, another wave of pain hit her so hard that she dropped the phone and slumped forward against the steering wheel. Marcus was walking toward the site office to clock out when he noticed the black Tesla parked erratically on the shoulder of the road, hazard lights blinking. Something about the way the car was positioned, halfway on the curb with the door slightly ajar, made him pause. His instincts, honed by years of watching out for safety hazards on construction sites, told him something was wrong. Without hesitation, Marcus jogged toward the vehicle, his work boots hitting the pavement with purpose. As he got closer, he could see someone slumped over the steering wheel. Through the driver's side window, he saw a woman in an expensive business suit, clearly in distress. "Ma'am? Ma'am, are you okay?" Marcus called out, tapping gently on the window. Victoria barely managed to lift her head, her face pale and drawn, with pain. She couldn't speak, but her eyes pleaded for help. Marcus immediately recognized the signs. His father had suffered a heart attack when Marcus was 22, and he'd never forgotten the symptoms. Without wasting another second, Marcus opened the car door and knelt beside Victoria. "I think you're having a heart attack. I'm going to call 911 right now, but first I need to get you comfortable." His voice was calm and reassuring, the same tone he used when Emma was scared or hurt. Marcus quickly assessed the situation. Victoria was conscious but in severe distress, and her breathing was shallow and rapid. "I'm Marcus," he said, pulling out his cell phone and dialing emergency services. "What's your name?" "Victoria," she managed to whisper between gasps. "Okay, Victoria, help is coming. Just try to stay calm and breathe slowly," Marcus said while speaking to the 911 dispatcher. "This is Marcus Thompson. I'm at the intersection of 5th and Madison, near the construction site. I have a woman here who appears to be having a heart attack. She's conscious but in severe chest pain." The dispatcher asked Marcus to stay on the line and provide updates on Victoria's condition. Following the dispatcher's instructions, Marcus helped Victoria sit more upright and loosened her collar to help her breathe easier. "Do you have any heart medication with you?" Marcus asked. Victoria shook her head weakly, then managed to point to her purse. Marcus found a small bottle of aspirin and, following the dispatcher's guidance, helped Victoria chew one of the tablets, which could help reduce the severity of the heart attack. Other construction workers had noticed the commotion and came over to help. Jake directed traffic around the scene while another colleague flagged down the approaching ambulance. Marcus never left Victoria's side, continuously monitoring her pulse and breathing while offering words of encouragement. "You're doing great, Victoria. The paramedics are almost here. Just keep breathing with me, okay? In and out, nice and slow." As the ambulance sirens grew louder, Victoria looked up at Marcus through her pain-filled haze. This man, this stranger, in work clothes, had appeared like an angel when she needed help most. His calloused hands were gentle, his voice was steady, and his eyes showed genuine concern for someone he'd never met before. The paramedics arrived within 8 minutes, quickly taking over Victoria's care. They confirmed Marcus's assessment. She was indeed having a significant heart attack and needed immediate transport to the hospital. As they prepared to load her into the ambulance, Victoria grabbed Marcus's hand. "Thank you," she whispered, tears mixing with the perspiration on her cheeks. "You're going to be okay," Marcus replied, squeezing her hand gently. "The doctors will take good care of you." As the ambulance pulled away, Marcus realized he was going to be late picking up Emma. He called the school to explain the situation, and Mrs. Rodriguez assured him she'd stay with Emma until he arrived. Little did he know that he'd just saved the life of the CEO whose mother had mocked him that very morning. The intersection returned to normal traffic flow, but Marcus stood there for a moment longer, saying a silent prayer that the woman named Victoria would recover fully. He had no idea that this moment of compassion would soon change both their lives forever. At Riverside General Hospital, Victoria was rushed into the cardiac intensive care unit, where Dr. Sarah Martinez, one of the city's top cardiologists, took charge of her care. The medical team worked quickly to stabilize her condition, administering medications to dissolve the blood clot that had caused the heart attack. "Mrs. Whitfield, you've suffered what we call a STEMI heart attack," Dr. Martinez explained once Victoria was stable and conscious. "The quick action of the person who found you likely saved your life. Without immediate help, this could have been fatal." Victoria's mind was still foggy from the medications, but she clearly remembered the construction worker named Marcus, who had stayed with her, kept her calm, and called for help. "The man who helped me, do you know anything about him?" The paramedic said a construction worker was the first responder. He did everything right, recognized the symptoms immediately, called 911, gave you aspirin, and monitored your vital signs until we arrived. "You're very lucky he was there." Meanwhile, Marcus had finally made it to the school, arriving 45 minutes late and covered in concrete dust. Emma was waiting patiently in the office with Mrs. Rodriguez working on her homework. "Daddy," Emma called out, running to hug him. "Mrs. Rodriguez said you helped someone who was sick." "That's right, Princess. Sometimes we have to help people when they're in trouble," Marcus said, kneeling down to Emma's level. "Are you okay? I'm sorry I was late." "It's okay, Daddy. You're a hero." Emma declared with the absolute certainty that only children possess. Mrs. Rodriguez approached them with a warm smile. Mr. Thompson, Emma told me what happened. You should be proud of yourself for helping that woman. As they drove home in his old pickup truck, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about Victoria. He wondered if she was okay and if the doctors had been able to help her. He'd never know that he'd just saved the life of one of the city's most powerful business leaders. 3 days later, Victoria was recovering well in her private hospital room. Her assistant Jennifer had been managing the company's affairs, and the board had been informed of her condition. Victoria had spent the time reflecting on her life, her priorities, and the stranger who had appeared at exactly the right moment to save her. Jennifer, I need you to do something for me, Victoria said as her assistant prepared to leave for the day. I want to find the construction worker who helped me. His name is Marcus, and he was working at the site on 5th and Madison. Of course, Mrs. Whitfield. I'll contact the construction company immediately. Jennifer made several phone calls and learned that Marcus Thompson worked for Riverside Construction Company. She obtained his contact information and, at Victoria's request, arranged for a large bouquet of flowers and a thank you card to be sent to his home address. When Marcus arrived home that evening with Emma, he found the expensive floral arrangement on his doorstep. The card was written on elegant stationery with Victoria's personal letterhead. Dear Marcus, the card read, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for saving my life. The doctors told me that without your quick thinking and compassion, I might not be here today. I would very much like to meet you in person to properly thank you. Please call me at your convenience. With deepest gratitude, Victoria Whitfield. Marcus stared at the card, reading it twice. The name Whitfield sounded familiar, but he couldn't place where he'd heard it before. Daddy? Who sent the pretty flowers? Emma asked, admiring the colorful arrangement. The lady I helped the other day. She wanted to say thank you, Marcus replied, still processing the formal tone of the card and the expensive stationery. That evening, after Emma had gone to bed, Marcus called the number on the card. Victoria answered on the second ring. Hello, this is Marcus Thompson. I got your card today. Marcus, thank you so much for calling. How are you? I'm fine, ma'am. How are you feeling? Are you okay? Victoria was touched by the genuine concern in his voice. I'm recovering well, thanks to you. Marcus, I can't adequately express how grateful I am. You literally saved my life. I just did what anyone would do. I'm glad you're feeling better. I'd like to meet you in person to thank you properly. Would you be available for coffee sometime this week? I could come to you, wherever is convenient. Marcus hesitated. Something about the woman's formal way of speaking and the expensive flowers made him wonder if she was wealthy. He didn't want charity or to be treated like some kind of hero just for doing what was right. Ma'am, you don't need to thank me. I'm just glad you're okay. That's enough for me. Please, Marcus, it would mean a lot to me. How about tomorrow afternoon at the coffee shop on Elm Street? My treat. Against his better judgment, Marcus agreed to meet her. He had no idea that he was about to sit down with the CEO of a billion-dollar company, or that this meeting would set in motion a series of events that would vindicate him in front of every person who had ever judged him by his appearance. As he hung up the phone, Marcus wondered what kind of person Victoria was and why meeting him seemed so important to her. Little did he know that across town, Gloria Whitfield was visiting her daughter in the hospital, completely unaware that the inappropriate construction worker she'd dismissed that morning was the same man who had just saved her daughter's life. The why, threads of fate were weaving together in ways none of them could have imagined, and tomorrow's coffee meeting would be the beginning of a revelation that would change everything. The next afternoon, Marcus arrived at the coffee shop 10 minutes early, having changed out of his work clothes into his best pair of jeans and a clean button-down shirt. He'd asked Jake to cover the last hour of his shift so he could meet Victoria. Though he still felt nervous about the whole situation, he chose a quiet corner table and ordered a simple black coffee, checking his watch every few minutes. At exactly 3 o'clock, the coffee shop door opened, and a woman in an elegant navy suit entered, looking around uncertainly. Marcus recognized her immediately, though she looked much healthier than she had during their first encounter. Victoria spotted him and walked over with a warm smile. Marcus? He stood up quickly, extending his hand. Yes, ma'am. You must be Victoria. You look much better than the last time I saw you. Thanks to you, she replied, shaking his hand firmly. May I sit? As Victoria settled into the chair across from him, Marcus noticed other customers glancing in their direction. Her presence commanded attention, not in an arrogant way, but with a quiet confidence that spoke of success and authority. First, I want to apologize for not knowing who you were when I sent that formal card, Victoria began. I had my assistant track you down, and I realize now that might have seemed a bit impersonal. It's no problem at all. I'm just glad you're feeling better. Victoria studied his face, noting the genuine warmth in his eyes and the way he seemed completely unaffected by any potential difference in their social status. Marcus, can I ask you something? What made you stop to help me that day? Most people would have just kept walking. Marcus considered the question seriously. My father had a heart attack when I was younger. I recognize the signs. Besides, when someone needs help, you help them. That's just how I was raised. Tell me about yourself. Do you have family? I have a daughter, Emma. She's 6 years old and the light of my life. Her mother passed away a couple of years ago, so it's just the two of us now. Victoria's expression softened. I'm so sorry for your loss. It must be incredibly difficult raising a child on your own. Some days are harder than others, but Emma makes it all worthwhile. She's smart, funny, and has this amazing way of finding joy in everything. I'm working hard to give her the best life I can. Where does she go to school? Riverside Elementary. It's a bit of a stretch financially, but the education there is excellent. I want her to have every opportunity possible. Victoria nearly dropped her coffee cup. Riverside Elementary was where her own daughter Sophia attended school, and more importantly, it was the same school where her mother served as PTA president. A strange coincidence was beginning to form in her mind. That's interesting. My daughter Sophia goes to Riverside too. She's 8, so she's probably in a different grade than Emma. Marcus smiled. Emma loves that school. She talks about her teacher and her new friends constantly. It's worth every extra hour I work to see her so happy there. Extra hours? I work construction during the day and pick up painting jobs and delivery work on weekends. The tuition at Riverside isn't cheap, especially on a single income. Victoria was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Here was a man working multiple jobs to give his daughter the same educational opportunities that she could easily afford for Sophia. The dedication and sacrifice required was something she deeply respected. Marcus, I have to tell you something. I'm Victoria Whitfield. I'm the CEO of Whitfield Industries. Marcus looked puzzled. Should that name mean something to me? Victoria couldn't help but laugh. In a world where most people knew exactly who she was and what her company did, Marcus's honest confusion was refreshing. We're one of the largest companies in the city, but that's not important right now. What's important is that you saved my life, and I want to do something meaningful to thank you. Ma'am, you really don't need to do anything. I didn't help you expecting a reward. I know you didn't, which makes this even more important to me. Marcus, I'd like to offer you a job with my company. We have construction projects, but we also have opportunities in management, logistics, and other areas where your skills and character would be valued. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I appreciate the offer, but I don't want charity. I'm proud of the work I do, and I earn my way honestly. This isn't charity. This is recognizing quality when I see it. You showed incredible skill. Under pressure, you have a strong work ethic and you clearly have your priorities straight. Those are exactly the qualities I look for in employees. Before Marcus could respond, the coffee shop door opened again, and Gloria Whitfield entered with 2 of her friends from the country club. Victoria waved at her mother, who approached their table with curiosity. Victoria, darling, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be resting? Mom, I'd like you to meet someone very special. This is Marcus Thompson. Marcus, this is my mother, Gloria Whitfield. Marcus stood up politely and extended his hand. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Whitfield. Gloria's face went pale as she recognized him, the construction worker from the school, The man she'd lectured about proper attire and maintaining standards was sitting in a coffee shop with her daughter, being treated like an honored guest. We, that is. Gloria stammered, clearly flustered. Victoria looked between her mother and Marcus, noticing the strange tension. Do you two know each other? Marcus, ever the gentleman, simply said, We met briefly at the school. Gloria's friends, whispered behind her, recognizing the awkward situation. The man they'd all dismissed and gossiped about was apparently important enough to warrant a personal meeting with one of the city's most powerful executives. Victoria sensed there was more to the story, but she could address that later. Right, now she wanted to focus on Marcus and the incredible debt she owed him. Mom, Marcus is the man who saved my life. He's the one who found me during my heart attack and stayed with me until the paramedics arrived. The revelation hit Gloria like a physical blow. This man, this construction worker she'd insulted and tried to shame, had literally saved her daughter's life while she had been at the country club complaining about those people and their lack of proper standards. Gloria's face turned several shades of red as the full weight of the situation crashed down on her. The man she had publicly humiliated and dismissed as unworthy of the school community had saved her daughter's life. Her friends stood behind, her in stunned silence, equally embarrassed by the revelation. Marcus, Gloria began, her voice trembling with emotion, I owe you the most sincere apology of my life. What I said to you at the school was inexcusable, and I am deeply ashamed of my behavior. Marcus looked confused, glancing between Gloria and Victoria. I'm not sure I understand what's happening here. Victoria's eyes narrowed as she studied her mother's distressed expression. Mom, what exactly did you say to Marcus at the school? Gloria took a shaky breath, knowing she had to confess her shameful behavior. I made terrible assumptions about Marcus based on his work clothes. I suggested he wasn't appropriate for the school environment and implied that he didn't belong there. The coffee shop fell silent around their table. Victoria's face showed a mixture of disappointment and anger that Marcus had rarely seen in anyone. Her voice when she spoke was ice cold. You did what? Victoria's professional composure cracked for the first time since Marcus had known her. You judged this man, this hero who saved your daughter's life, because of how he was dressed? Victoria, I had no idea who he was or what kind of person. That's exactly the point, Mom. Victoria's voice rose slightly before she caught herself and lowered it again. You had no idea who he was, but you felt entitled to judge him anyway. This man works multiple jobs to pay for his daughter's education at the same school your granddaughter attends, and you made him feel unwelcome. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, not wanting to be the cause of a family argument. Mrs. Whitfield, it's okay. I've dealt with worse things in my life. No, Marcus, it's not okay, Victoria replied firmly. My mother's behavior was completely unacceptable, and it reflects terribly on our family. Gloria's friends had quietly retreated to another table, leaving her to face the consequences of her actions alone. She looked at Marcus with tears in her eyes. Marcus, I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know that I was completely wrong. You showed more character in 5 minutes helping my daughter than I showed in 5 seconds judging you. I'm horrified by my own behavior. Marcus studied Gloria's face and saw genuine remorse there. His own experiences with loss and struggle had taught him the value of compassion, even for those who had wronged him. Mrs. Whitfield, we all make mistakes. What matters is how we learn from them. I accept your apology. Victoria watched this exchange with growing admiration for Marcus. Even after being insulted and dismissed, he was showing grace and forgiveness to someone who clearly didn't deserve it. Marcus, Victoria said, I want to make something very clear. That job offer I made earlier has nothing to do with what just happened here. I offered you a position because you have exceptional character, quick thinking under pressure, and a work ethic that's rare to find. The fact that you've now shown incredible grace toward someone who treated you poorly only confirms my assessment. Over the next hour, Victoria and Marcus continued their conversation while Gloria sat quietly, processing her own prejudices and mistakes. Victoria learned about Marcus's background, how he'd been an honor student in high school but couldn't afford college after his father's heart attack, how he'd married his high school sweetheart Sarah, and how her death had motivated him to work even harder to provide for Emma. Marcus learned that Victoria had also worked her way up from entry-level positions despite her family's wealth. She'd insisted on earning her success rather than having it handed to her, and she valued hard work above social status or family connections. "I'd like to offer you a position as a project supervisor," Victoria explained. "It would involve overseeing construction projects but also managing teams and coordinating with architects and engineers. The salary would be significantly higher than what you're making now, with full benefits including health insurance and a college fund program for employees' children." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Why are you doing this? And please don't say it's just because I helped you that day." "Because I've spent the last hour talking to you, and I can see exactly the kind of person you are. You're intelligent, dedicated, humble, and principled. Those qualities are worth far more than any college degree or family connection." 3 months later, Marcus had settled into his new role at Whitfield Industries. He'd proven Victoria's assessment correct, showing natural leadership abilities and earning the respect of both the construction crews and the management team. His salary increase had allowed him to move to a better apartment and start a substantial college fund for Emma. At Riverside Elementary, the atmosphere had changed dramatically. Gloria had not only publicly apologized to Marcus at the next PTA meeting, but had also established a scholarship fund for hard-working families who needed financial assistance with tuition. She'd become one of Marcus's strongest supporters, often telling other parents about the hero who had saved her daughter's life. Emma and Sophia had become fast friends, often having playdates that brought Marcus and Victoria together regularly. What had started as gratitude had grown into a genuine friendship based on mutual respect and shared values. One evening, as Marcus picked up Emma from a playdate at Victoria's house, she walked him to his car. "You know," Victoria said, "I've been thinking about that day when you saved my life. I used to believe that success was measured by bank accounts and stock prices. But you showed me that real success is measured by the lives we touch and the character we show when no one is watching." Marcus smiled, watching Emma and Sophia giggle together in the backyard. "I think we both learned something important. You showed me that wealth and power don't have to corrupt someone. They can be tools for helping others when they're in the right hands." As they drove home that evening, Emma looked up at her father with the same adoring expression she'd always had. "Daddy, are you still a hero?" Marcus chuckled, ruffling her hair gently. "I'm just your dad, princess. But maybe that's hero enough." The story that had begun with mockery and dismissal had transformed into something much more powerful. A testament to the truth that character isn't determined by what someone wears or where they work, but by how they treat others and what they do when faced with the opportunity to help. Sometimes the people we're quickest to judge are exactly the ones we need most in our lives. Gloria spent the following months not just apologizing, but actively working to change the culture at Riverside Elementary. She organized diversity and inclusion workshops for parents, started mentorship programs pairing families from different backgrounds, and made sure that no child or parent would ever again feel unwelcome because of their economic situation. The transformation wasn't just in Gloria, it was in the entire school community. Parents began to look beyond surface appearances and started valuing character over status symbols. The school became a place where Emma could truly thrive, not despite her father's profession, but because the community had learned to appreciate the values he represented. Marcus never forgot the lesson that sometimes our greatest challenges lead to our greatest opportunities. What had started as one of the most humiliating mornings of his life had become the catalyst for a completely new chapter. Not just for him and Emma, but for everyone whose lives they touched. Years later, when Emma graduated as valedictorian and earned a full scholarship to college, she would credit not just her father's sacrifices, but also the community that learned to see past appearances and embrace what really mattered. The Mockery had indeed become a miracle, transforming not just one family's circumstances, but an entire community's understanding of what it means to be truly successful.